And I can share my screen. In a second, I'm going to turn off my messages and emails so you don't have to see all those coming in as I'm sharing my screen. So I don't know how much you know about what Monitor does, but essentially it's many of these items under operations. So metrics, logging, tracing, air tracking, alerts, and incidents. It's like these top 5 things. These are all of the things that Monitor handles. Mm-hmm. And at some point a long time ago, I think when I first joined a couple of years ago, we created a separate setting for operations under settings. So operations has its own settings page, and theoretically everything that is under operations should be here. Mm-hmm. However, that's not totally the case yet. A lot of things for configure manages. Essentially, this settings operations page is all of the Monitor features and mm-hmm. configures features, which are serverless and Kubernetes. Mm-hmm. They have their own settings pages and they're not on this page. So even though this one says operations, and you would think it corresponds to all of the operations items, yeah. It does not. It only corresponds to the Monitor items.
Do you know why that decision was made to have like separate settings for those specific features?
I think it was just a way to surface them. I feel like that was like one of the very first things I worked on when I came to GitLab, and it was the PM's kind of suggestion to consolidate all of that so that it wasn't hidden within, webhooks and integrations and general, and there was just one place where all of those things, where all of those settings could be configured. But why configure didn't ever move theirs, or maybe they'd never bought into the idea in the first place, I don't know. But also I guess I should say that the configure items, essentially we have proposals so that all of these items below incidents are going to disappear from the operations menu. And they're in separate categories. So when that happens, hopefully in the next milestone or two, all of the operations items from the main operations menu, all the settings for those items will be under configuration, be under the operation settings.
So that would be this the set. And when you were saying categories, it's the categories within serverless will go into operations.
So serverless and Kubernetes are hopefully going to be moving into those are the configure items, mm-hmm. and they're going to be moving into their own nav item called infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And they will handle I'm not sure what they're going to do with their settings from that point.
Okay.
And then environment and feature flags are going to be going into a releases nav item. So serverless Kubernetes environment and feature flags will soon be disappearing from the operations menu. And at that point, everything within that operations menu, the settings for all of those items will be under settings operations as it was originally intended 2 years ago.
Great. Thanks for clarifying that for me. It's a lot of terminology for me to get my head around, so I appreciate that.
And it's a mess, so yeah. I think one other thing, so yeah, I think the page itself, I think operates the same as many of the other settings pages do, with like expandable collapsible sections. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think, the only other settings thing that the other team, APM, which no longer exists, was trying to start introducing, and that I think we want to try to work a little bit more towards, is having, and this one isn't actually set up, but you can see this metric settings. So having more in context settings options, or at least linking to these settings pages from within the actual pages where you're accessing those features. So that's like something that we're trying to start doing, but we haven't done a great job of yet. More contextual settings links.
Okay. What was your group thinking around, let's say you went down with this monitor approach of having the settings button linking over to a settings page. How would you navigate between the settings page and back to this dashboard or whatever main screen? Like, what were you thinking of the navigation patterns between the two views?
Sure. So a lot of these items under setting operations, they're sort of, you set it up once when you're setting up the page or setting up the feature, and then you don't ever go back there again. Mm-hmm. So I think we're trying to separate out the experiences for features like that, where you're kind of configuring it, getting the page just to appear, getting the content to appear on the page, and then settings that you might need to come back and kind of tweak as you're interacting with the page. So with that metrics example, I believe the idea for that, I didn't work on that piece, but I believe the idea for that, and maybe we can see, will it let us see that? No, it links directly to the settings. That those things you might actually need to interact with a bit more frequently. Let's look what's under there at metrics. That maybe you want to change the dashboard time zone or something. That it might be something that you need to access even after the page is formatted. But now once you're here, you'd have to go back to the nav to navigate back to metrics. There's no like quick link back after you've made that change to get back to where you were. You'd have to remember where you were and navigate back on your own.
Yep. And that can be challenging.
Sure, yeah.
Cool. And is there any upcoming work or kind of things that your group is looking at that is going to touch settings or is blocked by settings or anything related to that?
Not really anymore. One of the things that we were talking about, so most of the things that impact the operations items are here. The one that isn't is Prometheus. Yeah. And there was an issue that the APM team had before they were disbanded, which was to move this Prometheus configuration over into operation settings. So that is like the one piece that is kind of floating out on its own right now. And I don't know if that will ever get moved now that the APM team is no longer. I don't know at what point that work would ever get prioritized by the health team. So there is that piece that was sort of planned as the like final piece of moving everything over that is kind of hanging in the air. But I think one of the big things that's always been a gray area in Monitor is a lot of the things that are operation settings items are actually integrations. So like we can utilize kind of the Slack application and the Slack notification for incident management, for example. That's can be used for other places. So that's why it's left kind of in that integration section. But I think it's not always been clear to us where to put stuff. Like should stuff that we integrate with, like for example, OpsGenie. The OpsGenie integration came up a few months ago. Most of the integrations live on this list. So should we put it here with all of these other integrations, which is a logical place to put it. But then we also have this operations page where all of the other incident and alert items are. So now we've kind of painted ourselves into this situation where, or into this corner where we don't have a clear answer to questions like that, because it could actually fit in two places, and which one's the most logical and why should one thing be in one place rather than the other, I think is something that it's a discussion that keeps coming up for us, and that we don't have a great answer for.
Yes, I can see how that can be challenging. And then with integrations, for example, something like the Slack one,
Mm-hmm.
or there could be like multiple features that overlap. Like, is there any overlapping issues? Like, let's say for Prometheus, I like change the URL for the for something. Would that affect another group? And like, is that like, has that been an issue, or has that not really been an issue?
That hasn't been a huge issue for us. I guess why has that not been a huge issue for us? Like with the Slack notifications, it's pretty granular.
Right, gotcha.
So in fact, do we have those issues? Yeah, so like when we've utilized it, it's right here for like alerts. You can specify a specific channel just for alerts. So even if somebody changed this channel for something else, merge requests or whatever, it wouldn't impact how we're using it for alerts. So I think in that Slack context, because it is so granular, we haven't had any conflicts. I'm surprised we haven't had conflicts with Prometheus, but maybe that's just because not a lot of people are using it for monitoring. To be totally frank, I don't know how many people are using it
Okay,
to show metrics.
cool,
Using our features.
cool.
But I suppose that could technically impact it for sure.
All right, yeah, that makes sense. But I think if we follow some kind of pattern like the Slack, where almost each feature has its own like section within that integration, to say like these are the configurations specific to that, then you're not stepping on toes of other features and you don't get wires crossed. So that might be something we explore to formalize over time here. Cool.
One other
Yeah.
thing I realized that we do have planned as well that I haven't mentioned that impact settings is the visibility. We have issues to have like a whole section for operations and then to be able to turn off the visibility of all of these items for people who don't use them and to turn off the whole category, but we haven't implemented it yet. And I don't know if this pattern is going to change, but like metrics dashboard has been added on here, but none of the other operations pages have. So we do have issues for that work, but they haven't happened yet.
So our group is tackling some of this stuff in 13.6, the specific thing of toggling things on and off. What we are thinking at the moment is like high level stuff. So like turning off operations, turning off package and registrations, analytics. Do you see a scenario where we would have to do the granular level, kind of like with issues or merge requests where there's like sub menu items as well? Or can we approach it as like a holistic thing and then handle the subgroups separately?
Well, I think turning off the sections, it would probably be useful, like just turning off operations, because probably a lot of people don't use it. But I think with operations, we probably will want to be a little bit more granular because we have features, for example, like tracing, which are very, very minimal. And it's highly likely that somebody won't use that, but may actually use incident management. So I think we would want to allow people to decide which of those features they want to use. And it's very possible that people will use some, but not all of them. Because there's like a whole set for observability. People might have other tools for observability which are the metrics, logs, tracing, and error tracking. They might not use any of those, but they might use alerts and incidents. So I think we will need more than just operations visibility toggleable.
Cool. Cool. Thanks for clarifying that.
Sure. But exciting that you're already working on that.
Yeah, we're just like finding things that we can probably implement. So it's going to be like the same kind of UI pattern here. We're not going to change that up right away. We're going to probably revisit changing the UI in a later date because yeah, we just want to get some stuff out iteratively and then focus on layout and all that stuff later. And then formalizing those patterns in the future through pajamas. And that's kind of like the path that we're heading down right now.
Great.
Is there any examples of settings work that you've done here at GitLab or outside of GitLab that you've been particularly proud of or like took notice?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know, this is a complicated question to answer. We've been working on this alert integrations piece for some time. Mm-hmm. And we had a pretty interesting proposal before to have kind of a card view for adding new integrations. So it was a series of cards, and you can just click on the card to see or to add an integration of a specific type. We've decided not to implement that at this point because it was, for a lot of different reasons, I guess. The product team decided not to move forward with that. So we have this, which is not great. It's like a super, super long form. And like in terms of experience, I'm not like very proud of this, but I think that the direction that we were going to go with this, with the card view, I think is something that I've also seen Maria do and configure. And I think it makes, here, I can actually show you what we were essentially trying to do. See if I can find it quickly. I may not be able to, but I'll try. Atlassian does a pretty good job in Ops Genie with this. Let's see, services, I think. External services, no. I'm probably not going to be able to find it now.
Is it under add service there at the top right?
Integration was configure. One sec. There it is. Yeah. So we were trying to build something more like this. So for adding integrations, like more of a card view. And then like once you click to add something, it's like super easy. And then you just save it and it's like visible, like what you're adding and if it's been installed or not. And it's pretty easy to see. It just makes it really visible, the different kinds of integrations that you can add. And I think this design pattern is nice. And we were trying to work towards something like that, but haven't yet been able to achieve it. Maybe someday.
If you don't mind, if you can link that issue to me, and then I can probably take a look at it. And I think this is like Inception when you put like thoughts in people's head, and then like maybe in 2 weeks' time or a month's time, I start designing stuff, and you like cards.
Sure. Yeah, I'll find the original design that we had, so you can see it.
Yeah.
It's not this robust because it was just a first pass, but yeah. And where would you like me? Where is it best to share that?
If you can add that in the agenda, that would probably be the best spot.
Sure.
But
Sure.
Cool.
I'm happy to do that. And are there other questions or things that?
At this time, that's like all, like that ticked all the key questions that I had in the agenda for us. But yeah, thank you for walking us through some of these screens and how everything connects to each other and showing us Ops Genie's first time I've seen it, so I appreciate that.
Sure.
Yeah, cool.
Cool. Yeah,
thank you very much for your time.
Yeah, of course. And if there's anything else that's helpful or that I can be helpful, any other information, please let me know, and I'm happy to help out in whatever way you can. I'm just excited that somebody's focusing on this because it's been on us for a really long time.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I'll probably ask for feedback and guidance in a few weeks' time once I get my head around everything. So thank you very much again for your time, and speak to you soon.
Sure. Thank you.
All right, bye.